The 2014 Kenya National Rally Championship returned for the fifth round, the KCB MBENKI Rally, with the event taking the crews to the slopes of Africa's second highest summit, Mount Kenya. The Nanyuki round was dropped from the championship last year, but was making a welcome return to the fold in what was turning out to be a fascinating season of competition. The fourth round had seen the crews head to the Kerio Valley and the famous floor spar escarpment, where Ian Duncan had led the opening loop before a puncher put paid to his challenge. It meant the championship had a new face on the winner's rostrum, with Rajbir Rai taking his first career win. Tundo's challenge had ended on the very first stage after breaking a front arm, and despite suffering from a high fever, Baldev Chaga had held on to secure second overall, and the defending champion had returned to the top of the leaderboard for the title race. The crews arrived in Nanyuki for the fifth round, which would once again take them through breathtaking scenery around Timau and the Loldaiga Hills. Tundo was back in his Mitsubishi Evo 9 after a mishap in testing sidelined his Proton S2000.
It's really exciting. It's typical Nanyuki. Loldaigas is fantastic. Defending from the last time we were up here, so looking forward to it, although I'm in my old car.
During the interim, Jazzy Chate had been in action on the Africa Rally Championship and had taken his first victory on the Tanzanian round of the series and now heads up the field in that title chase. Alistair Kavanagh returned with his Proton S2000 after missing the last round, hoping to learn more about the car and be able to adapt his driving style. He would be looking for a top 5 finish. As the crews lined up outside the KCB branch in Nanyuki town, thousands of spectators lined the streets to welcome back the event after its 12-month absence. Leading the drivers away in the round-robin system this time would be Azza Anwar, grateful that the first 3 stages were short, as he would have Chaga and Tundo breathing down his neck. Friday's stages took the crews on their first run through the Turako stage, a short 8-kilometre section just outside Nanyuki. The second stage was the only run through Kisima Farm in Timau. It was a more technical stage on fast-flowing roads across rolling hills. The third stage took the crews back to Nanyuki and their first run through the aptly named Batian View Spectator Stage near the Mount Kenya Safari Club. This was followed by service before the overnight Parc Ferme at the Sportsman's Arms Hotel in the centre of town. Saturday started with a repeat of the Turako stage before the first run through the longest stage of the event on Loldaiga Ranch. At 54 kilometres long, this stage had a bit of everything. It first wound through the beautiful mountains on twisty, narrow tracks before dropping down towards Barana on flat, fast, open roads. The route then turned back into the mountains to finish close to the start. This was followed by a return to the spectator stage before the only service of the day and regroup. The crews then had to do it all again as they repeated the entire loop before the finish and prize giving back at the service park. Azza Anwar was the first into the opening stage, playing the road sweeping role on this fast opening section. He dropped 47 seconds and emerged 10th overall on the 8-kilometre stage. Such was the pace of the leaders. Chaga went quickest, beating rivals Tundo and Rai by 4 seconds as the trio broke away from the rest of the field, with Onka Rai the nearest driver 12 seconds further back. Onka's rally would sadly end in transport to the next stage after a ball joint issue, and his event was over. We pick up the action on the second section, the only run through Kisima Farm on the northern slopes of Mount Kenya in Timau. The farm roads were smooth with plenty of fast sweeping bends and blind crests before climbing up to the airfield. At just 8.3 kilometres, every second would count. Tundo quickly got back up to speed in the Evo 9 after spending the last 2 rallies changing his driving style to suit the Proton. He went quickest to take the rally lead by just 1 second from Rai. Rajbir Rai blasted through the stage just a second slower than Tundo to overhaul Chaga and move up into second overall. Chaga lost 9 seconds to the leading pair, dropping down to third. On such short stages, every line needs to be perfect. Brake too early or slide too wide, and crucial seconds are lost. Chate was fourth fastest, a further 8 seconds slower than Chaga, but enjoying driving on closed roads and settling in. He wasn't taking any risks, with the bulk of the rally still to come the next day. Kavanagh was quickly getting to grips with the Proton and went fifth fastest, 6 seconds behind Chate. The stage suited the car and he was happy with his progress. Anwar was sixth fastest, which moved him up to 6th overall. With the roads closed, the disadvantage of road sweeping was not such an issue, and he was pushing hard in the old Evo 8. Jasmeet Channa was 7th fastest to hold on to 8th overall, closing the overall gap to Barrage to just 2 seconds. Barrage held on to 7th overall, with a good run on the opening stage, but could only manage 10th fastest on this stage, and his position was coming under threat from Channa. Frank Tundo was 8th fastest on the stage, and a place in the top 10 was being hard fought for. He set an identical time to Hardeep Ressi, and the pair were separated by just 3 seconds. Ressi held on to 9th after beating Tundo on the previous stage, but after 2 retirements in a row, he was being slightly more cautious on this event. Isa Anwari was making a welcome return after missing the previous rounds as his car was being rebuilt. Starting steadily, he was 11th overall as he blew off the cobwebs. The battle for the S-Class honours was being led by Karan Patel after he set the fastest time, 7 seconds quicker than Alistair Keith. He moved up to 12th overall, just 6 seconds behind Anwari. Keith was fastest on the opener, but lost out to Patel on this stage. The pair were now separated by just 4 seconds. However, Keith dropped down to 16th overall, 1 second behind Steve Gacheru. Taito Ashira also beat Keith on this stage to go 2nd fastest, but remained 3rd in the class, 5 seconds behind Keith. Jonathan Soman was back for another outing in his classic Escort, but with only Ramesh Vishram to compete with in the class, he would be focusing on his overall position, fighting with the newer cars all around him. Dennis Mwenda was fastest in the F2 class to once again open up a lead over his rivals. Always on full attack, he would be hoping his suspension problems that had plagued him so far this season had been resolved. Adnan Suhail went 2nd fastest in his hybrid Daihatsu and now trailed Mwenda by 19 seconds overall. Eric Bengi was once again pushing to get the maximum out of his little Toyota Run X, moving up to 3rd in the class, 8 seconds behind Suhail. Leonardo Varese might be leading the championship, but was once again off the pace, over 1.5 minutes slower than Mwenda over 16 kilometres. However, his tactic of waiting for his rivals to brake was paying dividends in the championship battle. The cars now headed back to Nanyuki and the Batian View spectator stage for the first run through the section. At just 3 kilometres long, but with every second counting, crews could not afford to back off. Importantly, it was a chance for rally fans to enjoy the spectacle, as this was the only stage accessible to the public. Tundo set the fastest time, 2 minutes 56 seconds, to head into the overnight Parc Fermé with a 6-second lead. Chaga was 2nd fastest, just a further second behind Tundo, but remaining in 3rd overall, 2 seconds adrift of Rajbir Rai. Rai set an identical time to Chaga to keep a slender grip on his 2nd overall position. The top 3 drivers now led the rest of the field by 40 seconds. Chate could only manage the 6th fastest time, losing further ground to the trio in front, but remaining in 4th overall. Raji Barrage was 4th fastest. This was navigator Jasniel Gatorez's first experience at this level of rallying, and he was doing well to stay on the notes. The pair ended the day up in 6th overall. Kavanagh was 5th fastest and ended the day just 9 seconds behind Chate and 5th overall. The battle for the top 10 remained close, with Anwar, Channa, Resi and Frank Tundo separated by less than 30 seconds going into the end of day Parc Ferme. Patel led Keith and Washira in the S-Class battle, with the trio separated by just 9 seconds after 3 short stages. Mwenda held a 15-second advantage over his rivals in the F2 class, with Suhail and Bengi separated by just 4 seconds in the battle for second. The crews would have a chance to service the cars before the overnight Parc Ferme. After 3 stages, they had completed just 20 kilometres of competitive rallying, but it was enough to get back into the rhythm and make sure the cars were ready for the long stages the following morning. It was another glorious sunrise that greeted the drivers on Saturday morning, with Mount Kenya out in all its splendour. It promised to be hot and dusty as the crews prepared for a long day of rallying. The drivers would leave the Sportsman's Arms Hotel after the restart, having been reseeded overnight, which meant that as the leader, Carl Tundo, would once again be first on the road.
Today's to get through the Lol Tigers without any issues, and I'm going to push through there, so whoever gets through there clean will win the rally.
We'll just try and keep a good pace through Lol Tiger, and I think whoever comes through there the fastest will win the rally. So we'll see how it goes.
Just to do the best we can, to be honest. Yeah. So today we're actually 3rd on the road, so I hope that works in our advantage.
The first stage would be the second run through to Raco. Crews were expected to be faster, having driven it the previous afternoon and had the chance to adjust their notes. Baldiv Chaga went quickest again, 13 seconds faster than the previous day, taking 7 seconds off his rivals, overhauling Rai and moving up into 2nd place, just a second behind Tundo.
Swinging it kabisa.
Tundo was 2nd fastest, holding on to the narrowest of leads, heading to the Lol Tiger stage, which he had earlier earmarked as the place to stage his attack.
I'm seeing it. Tundo.
Rajbir Rai dropped 9 seconds to Chaga and slipped to 3rd, but was still just 8 seconds off the lead.
That's body.
Wait, Papo.
Wow!
Where?
Hey, you imecheza?
Chate was 4th fastest, beating his previous time by 18 seconds. 8 seconds slower than Rai, he was in a bubble for 4th place. Raji Barrage was 5th fastest, behind his former Kibos teammate as he closed the gap on Kavanagh for 5th overall. Kavanagh struggled after a throttle sensor problem forced him to drive in road mode instead of stage mode, and without full power he could only manage the 10th fastest time. Anwar was 6th fastest but was losing ground to Barrage, slipping a further 11 seconds behind and now coming under threat from Channa. Channa went 7th fastest and was closing in on Anwar, opening up a 26-second cushion to Frank Tundo in the process. Hardeep Ressi started the day in 9th overall, but his rally ended dramatically after sliding wide and hitting a ditch in the long grass. The car rolled, ending up upside down. The crew were okay, but the car was badly damaged and they were out. Frank Tundo lost time when he slowed to check on the crew before reporting the accident to the controllers, who immediately held the remaining crews while safety vehicles and ambulances went to attend to Ressi. After a 30-minute delay, Anwari was next into the stage, setting the 8th fastest time. With Ressi out, he moved into 10th overall. Taito Ashira set the 9th fastest time and was quickest in the S-Class, closing down the gap to Keith. Karan Patel was 2nd fastest to extend his overall lead in the class and open up an 18-second advantage. Alistair Keith was suffering from food poisoning and after very little sleep was off the pace, losing ground to Patel as he struggled through the stage. Anwar Pandya was 11th fastest on this stage. However, problems on the opening stages meant he was fighting his way back up the leaderboard and was down in 17th overall. Mahesh Halai was another driver recovering positions as we get a chance to ride on board with him through the short Tarako stage.
100 fast left, minus medium right, plus stand slow right, do not miss and opens. Then medium right, do not miss plus opens. Minus max right over fast jump and 150, fast right.
Eric Bengi enjoyed the short stage and went fastest in the F2 category, beating Suhail by 6 seconds, which was enough to take the class lead by 2 seconds. Suhail was 2nd fastest in the class, but remained in 2nd overall with a new man to catch in front of him. Overnight leader Dennis Mwenda lost over 30 seconds to Bengi and dropped down to 3rd in the class, just 4 seconds behind Suhail. The cars now headed 10 kilometres up the road to the start of the longest stage of the rally, through the incredible Loldaiga Hills Ranch. At 54 kilometres long, this stage will be a tough mental challenge for the drivers. The first 20 kilometres took the crews through the beautiful forests and along the mountain ridges with spectacular views